In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Although we do not in any point of science arrogate perfection in ourselves, yet something we have attained by dear experience, by diligent labor, and by study, worthy of being communicated for the instruction of either the licentious libertine or the grave student, the observer of nature. And this, our work, we concentrated into a focus. It is, as it were, a spiritual essence drawn from a large quantity of matter. For we can say with propriety that this little treatise is truly spiritual and essential to the happiness of man. Therefore, to those who wish to be happy, with every good intention, we commend this work to be their constant companion and steady, in which, if they persevere, they shall not fail of their desires in the attainment of the true Philosopher's Stone.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Please note the explicit content indicator. This means that I use adult language. I do not speak in a humorless, public radio hushed monotone. I am excited and enthusiastic about the information that I present and the topics I discuss. You will hear ice rattle in my glass throughout the show. On the show, I joke about bodily functions, sex acts, religion, and politics. The topics may seem random or scattered through the back catalog. A list of show topics in chronological order is provided on the featured topic link at Advertise.com. If any of these issues might trigger you, this might not be the podcast for you, and I wish you good luck finding a show more to your liking. It's that time again, Abramancers. The music is low, the party is over, the fire is dying down, and all the ordinary people passed out long ago. Now we are the only ones left. Hey everybody, this is John. Welcome to, well, you know where you are. Got a little new intro set up there. Anyhow, tonight we're going to be talking about the Magus by Francis Barrett, 1801, specifically the chapter, The Jewel of Alchymy. So, if you're playing along at home, this is when I would like you to summon your vessel of the art, mix up your favorite weapon of mass distraction, raise it to the sky, and I may toast all my Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. Here's to you. May we get what we want, but never what we deserve. Part the first of Alchemy. Its divine origin, difficulty of attaining perfection in the art, what an adept is of the Kabbalah, the Rosicrucianist adepts, possibility of being an adept, likewise, that the lapis philosophorum exists in nature, and that proved by sufficient authority, and that they are not all imposters who are alchemists or pretend to it. The madness of the schools proved in the foolishness of their wisdom, the triumph of chemical philosophy, or the hermetic art preferable to any other. It is not necessarily here to enter into a long detail of merits of alchemical authors and philosophers. Suffice it to say that alchemy, the grand touchstone of natural wisdom on the divine origin, it was brought down from the heaven by the angel Uriel. Zoroaster, the first philosopher by fire, made pure gold from all 7 metals. He brought the sun 10 times brighter from the bed of Saturn and fixed it with the moon, who thereby copulating begot a numerous offspring of an immortal nature, a pure living spiritual sun burning in the refulgence of its own divine light, a seed of sublime and fiery nature, a vigorous progenitor. This Zoroaster was the father of alchemy, illumined divinely from above. He knew everything, yet seemed to know nothing. His precepts of art were left in the hieroglyphics, yet in such short that none but the favorable of heaven ever reaped benefit thereby. He was the first who engraved the pure Kabbalah in the most pure gold, and when he died, resigned to it his Father who liveth eternally, yet begot him not. The Father gives it to his sons, who follow the precepts of wisdom with vigilance, ingenuity, and industry, with a pure, chaste, and free mind. So there is a lot to unpack here. Everybody, we should know Zoroaster, right? Another name for Zoroaster is Zarathustra, the first philosopher, the guy who sat there and was like, all right, so there is such a thing as good and evil. And as we've been working through Book Club Wednesday with Thus Spake Zarathustra, we know that when Nietzsche sat down to write Thus Spake Zarathustra, he, the idea that he had was that God was dead, and the idea that he was exploring is, okay, well, if God is dead, and if we kick religion out of our equation, who's to say what's moral or ethical anymore? So it's interesting. There's some other good stuff here. Kabbalah. Now, I'm just going to mention, if you're interested in the Kabbalah, or even the Spake Zarathustra, you can just check out the feature topic link on the website. They both have their own lanes. The other thing is the Archangel Uriel. The Archangel Uriel, he mentions here at the beginning, makes a couple appearances in some of my fiction, some of my graphic novels and comic books. He was the angel of expulsion. When God kicked everybody out of the Garden of Eden, he placed Uriel there to watch over. He is all about the fire of God. So this book goes on. Right here, he mentions a bunch of alchemists, Hermes, Trismegistus, and so forth. I'll get back to it. And better still than these is the instructions we give. So this is another thing about the show, right? Is we talk about these magicians and wizards and whatnot, but we don't talk about them personally. We talk about their work, their instructions, because it's easy to get wrapped up in all the weird shit that these guys do. And there's plenty of podcasts that deal with that, you know. But this is it. I mean, I wish I could just clip this sentence out. And better still than these is the instructions we give. For with them a man shall never want gold. Therefore, to be an adept is possible, but first seek the kingdom of God. All these things shall be added unto you. This is the truth incontrovertible, and herein lies a vast secret. Seek and ye shall find, but remember, whatsoever ye ask, ye shall receive. Oh man, I'm working on some good shit. I'm just going to rip a lot of this off. The Kabbalah in its utmost purity is contained in the many precepts given in this book. The Kabbalah enables us to understand, to bring our understandings to act, and by that means to attain knowledge. And knowledge makes us the children of God, and God makes whom he pleases adepts in wisdom. And to be adept according to God's will is no contemptible calling. The noble and virtuous brethren of the Rosy Cross holds this truth sacred, that virtue flies from no man. Therefore, how desirable a thing is virtue? She teaches us first wisdom, then charity, love, mercy, faith, and constancy. All of these appertain to virtue. Therefore, it is physically possible for any well-inclined man to become an adept, provided that he lay aside his pride of reasoning, all obstinacy, blindness, hypocrisy, incredulity, superstition, deceit, etc. This is just telling us, man, be humble. Be humble. An adept, therefore, is one who not only studies to do God's will upon earth in respect to his moral and religious duties, but who studies the ardently prays for his benevolent creator, to bestow on him wisdom and knowledge from the fullness of his treasury. And then he meditates day and night on how he may attain the true aqua vita, the water of life, how he may be filled with the grace of God, which, when he is made so happy, his spiritual and internal eye is open to the glorious prospect of mortal and immortal riches. He wants not food, remnant, joy, or any other thing. He is filled with the celestial spiritual manna. He enjoys the marrow and fat things of the earth, and he treads the wine press. Like that. I'll actually drink to that one. Not the warmth, but the mercy of God. He lives to the glory of God and dies saying, Holy, 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 the Lord of Sabaoth. Blessed is thy name. And forevermore, amen. That's a version of, so the angels are busted up into these 9 hosts. And the angels that fly closest to the throne of God, they're it's easy to think that. So here's another thing. If you're interested in angels, you could go check out the featured topic link. Check out the Genesis section. There's an old episode called The Terrifying Angels of Genesis. And I think it's in that episode where we talk about the angels that fly closest to the throne of God. They, it's easy to think of angels as like anthropomorphized, like they're people, but they're not. They're like programmed machines. They don't have a soul. And for the majority of them, they don't have, free will. So God, this benevolent God that Francis Barrett London is talking about, basically created these living these living robots, to just float around his throne, to encircle his throne and sing, holy, 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 blessed is thy name now and forevermore, amen, which is basically what this is. This is a little bit more heavy metal because it throws in the Lord of Sabaoth. Anyhow, therefore, be an adept, as we have before hinted, is to know thyself, fear God, and love thy neighbor as thyself. But thou shalt come to the fulfillment of thy desires, O man, but by no other means, under the scope of heaven. When thy soul shall be made drunk by the divine ambrosia nectar. I'm going to drink to that one too. Then shall thy understanding be more clear than the noontide sun. Then by the strong and spiritualized intellectual eye shalt thou see in the great treasury of nature. And thou shalt praise God with the whole heart. Then wilt thou see the folly of thy world. And thou shalt unerringly accomplish this desire, and shalt possess the true Philosopher's Stone to the profit of thy neighbor. I say thou shalt visibly and sensibly, according to the corporal faculties, not imaginary, not delusively, but real. Helmont, an author of no mean repute, as I steeple my fingers, avouches that he actually sees the stone which converts base metals into gold. He has seen it with his eyes and handled it with his fingers, taken from his own relation of the fact, notwithstanding Kircher's declamation against the possibility of attaining it, noting them all who professed alchemy to be set of impostors and jugglers, giving no better exposition of their process of transmutation than this. An alchemist, says Kirchner, produces or desires a crucible to be brought wherein is put lead and any other base metal, while in fusion he, the alchemist, stirs about with an iron rod, and then he says, drops in from between his fingers a bit of gold, and after stirring for some time, and essay being made, gold is found. This is indeed a very lame method of exploding alchemy. But, however, to leave Kircher as much in the dark as he was, we shall give you von Hellmann's declaration, a philosopher of much greater note than this pseudo-chemist Kircher. Von Helmont says, I have divers times handled the stone with my hands. The writing here is a little bit weird, so I'm sorry. Have seen a real transmutation of saleable quicksilver with mine eyes, which in proportion did exceed the powder, which made the gold in some 1,000 degrees. It was the color that is in saffron, being weighty in its powder and shining like bruised glass, when it should be less exactly beaten. But there was once given unto me the 4th part of 1 grain. I call also a grain the 600th part of an ounce. This powder involved in wax scraped off a certain letter, lest in casting it into the crucible it should be dispersed through the smoak of the coals, which pellet of wax I afterwards cast into the 3-cornered vessel of a crucible upon a pound of quicksilver, hot and newly bought. Presently the whole quicksilver, with some little noise, stood still from flowing and residing like a lump. But the heat of that argent vive was as much as might forbid melted lead from recoagulating, the fire being straightway after increased under the bellows. The metal was melted, the which the vessel of fusion being broken, I found to weight 8 ounces of the most pure gold. Therefore, a computation being made, a grain of the powder doth convert 19,200 grains of impure and volatile metal, which is obliteratable by the fire into true gold. For that powder, by uniting the aforesaid quicksilver unto itself, preserved the same at one instant from the eternal rust, putrefaction, death, and torture of the fire. Howsoever most violent it was, and made it as an immortal thing against any vigor or industry of the art and fire, and changed it into the virgin purity of gold. At leastwise one only fire of coals is required herein, by which we see that so learned and profound a philosopher as Van Helmont could not so easily have been made to believe that there existed a possibility of transmutation of base metals into pure gold, without he had actually proved the same by this experiment. Again, let the standing monument of Flamel's liberal bounty to the poor through his means to be seen at Paris every day stand as a testimony to the truth of the existing possibility of transmutation. Likewise, Helmont mentions a stone that he saw and had in his possession, which cured all disorders, the plague not excepted. I shall relate the circumstances of his own words, which are as follows. There was a certain Irishman whose name was Butler, being sometime great with James, King of England, but he had detained in the prison of the castle of Villevorde, and taking pity on one Ballius, a certain Franciscan monk, the most famous preacher in Gallo, Britain, who was also imprisoned, having an erysipelas in his arm. On a certain evening when the monk did almost despair, he swiftly tingled a certain little stone in a spoonful of almond milk, and presently withdrew it hence. So he says to the keeper, "Reach this supping to the monk, and how much soever he shall take thereupon, and shall be whole, at least within a short hour's space." Which thing even so came to pass, and the great admiration of the keeper and of the sick man, not knowing from whence so sudden health shone upon him, seeing that he was ignorant that he had taken in anything in for his left arm, being before hugely swollen, fell down, that it could scarcely be discerned from the other. On the morning following, I, being entreated by some great men, came to Villevorde as a witness of his deeds. Therefore, I contracted a friendship with Butler. Soon afterwards, I saw a poor old woman, a laundress, who from the age of 16 years had labored with an intolerable megrim, cured in my presence. Indeed, he, by the way, lightly dipped the same little stone in a spoonful of oil of olives, and presently cleaned the same stone by licking it with his tongue, and laid it upon his snuff box. But that spoonful of oil he poured into the small bottle of oil, whereof one only drop he commanded to be anointed on the whole head of the aforesaid old woman, and thereby straightway cured and remained whole, which I attest I was amazed, as if he was become another Midas. But he, smiling, said, "My most dear friend, unless thou come hitherto, as to be able, by one only remedy to cure every disease, thou shalt remain in thy young beginnings, however old thou shalt become." I easily assented to this because I had learned that from the secrets of Paracelsus, and being now more confirmed by sight and hope, but I willingly confess that I knew no mode of curing, was unaccustomed and unknown to me. I therefore said that a young prince of our court, Viscount of Gaunt, brother to the Prince of Episoi, of a very great house, was so wholly prostrated by the gout that he thenceforth lay only on one side, being wretched and deformed with many knots. I'm going to drink to that too. I fucking understand this shit. He therefore, taking hold of my right hand, said, "Wilt thou that I cure the young man? I will cure him for thy sake." But I replied, "He is of that obstinacy that he had rather die than drink one only medicinal potion." "So be it," said Butler, "for neither do I require any other thing that he do every morning touch this little stone thou seest with the top of his tongue." Fucking stone lickers. "And after 3 weeks from thence, let him wash the painful and unpainful knots with his own urine, and thou shalt soon afterwards see him cured, and soundly walking go the ways, and tell him with joy what I have said." But the potentate answered, "Go and tell Butler that if he restore me, as thou hast said, I will give him as much as he shall require. Demand the price, and I will willingly sequester that which is deposited for his security." And that's true. If a guy's racked with a gout and someone's like, "Yo, bro, I can cure you," like literally, I'll be like, I will deed you my house for nothing. And then when I declared the thing to Butler on the day following, he was very wrath. And he said, "That prince is mad or witless or miserable, and therefore I will never help him, for neither do I stand in need of his fucking money, neither do I yield, nor am I inferior to him, nor could I ever induce him afterwards to perform what before he had promised. Wherefore I began to doubt whether the things I had seen before were dreams." It happened in the meantime that a friend, overseer, and master of the glass furnace at Antwerp, being exceedingly fat, most earnestly requested of Butler that he might be freed from his fatness, body shaming, unto whom Butler offered a small piece of that little stone, and he might once every morning lick or speedily touch it with the top of his tongue, and within 3 weeks I saw his breast made more straight or narrow by one span, and him who have lived no less the whole afterwards. Therefore I began again to believe that the aforesaid gouty prince might have been cured, according to the manner Butler had promised. In the meantime, I sent to Vilford to Butler for a remedy in the case of the poison given me by a secret enemy, for I miserably languished, and all my joints were pained, and my pulse vehemently being at length become an intermitting one, did accompany with the faintings of my mind and the extinguishment of my strength. Butler, being still detained in a prison, commanded my household servant, who I had sent, that forthwith he should bring unto him a small bottle of olive oil, and his little stone aforesaid, being tinged therein, as at other times. He sent that oil unto me, and told the servant that while the only one small drop of the oil I should anoint only one place of pain or all the places, if I would, the which I did, and yet felt no help thereby. In the meantime, my enemy, according to his lot, steepling his fingers, being about to die, bade that pardon should be craved for me, for his sin. So I knew that I had taken poison, the which I suspected, and therefore also I procured with all care to extinguish the slow venom, which through the grace of God favoring me I escaped. Seeing that afterwards many other cures were performed upon certain gentlewomen, I asked Butler why so many women should be cured, but that I should not feel any ease. But he asked with what disease I had labored. And when he understood that poison had been given at the beginning to the disease, he said, what is the cause had come from within to without? The oil ought to be taken into the body, and or the stone to be touched with the tongue, because of the grief being cherished within. It was not local or external. And also observe that the oil did by degree unclothe itself with its efficacy of healing, because the little stone being lightly tinged in it had not pithily charged the oil throughout its whole body, but it had only ennobled it with a delible or obliteratable sprinkling of its odor. For truly that stone did present in its eyes and tongue sea salt spread abroad or rarefied, and it is sufficiently known that salt is not to be very intimately mixed with oil. The same man also cured an abbess who for 18 years had her right arm swelled with an entire deprivation of motion, and the fingers thereof still and unmovable, only by the touching of her tongue with the admirable stone.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess, and I host the podcast Shoes, Booze, and Tattoos. I like to discuss a little bit of everything that's weird or unusual, from hauntings and folklore to true crime and history. I'm not only a podcaster, but I'm also a practicing witch, so I've made sure to dedicate a few episodes to the subject and dispel some of the common misconceptions about the craft. So if this sounds like your cup of tea, you can find Shoes, Booze, and Tattoos anywhere you get podcasts. And remember that booze is spelled B-O-O-S. I hope to see you all soon. Bye!
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
But now we will hasten to the manner of preparation necessary to qualify a man for the attainment of the sublime gifts. Of the preparation of a man to qualify him for the search of this treasure, and of the first matter, prima materia of the stone. So this is going to read like, it's like a little kind of alchemist self-help book here. It's busted down into a series of lessons. So I'm just going to go through them. Lesson 1. The preparation for the work is simply this. Learn to cast away from the all vile afflictions, all levity, that's fucked, and inconsistency of mind. We're talking about that in the Thelema episodes we're doing. All thy dealings be free from deceit and hypocrisy. Avoid the company of vain young men. Hate all profligacy and fucking profane speaking. Lesson 2. Keep thy own and thy neighbor's secrets, and court not the favors of the rich, and despise not the poor, for he who does will be poorer than the poorest. Lesson 3. Give to the needy, the unfortunate, what little thou canst spare. For he that has but little, whatever he spares to the miserable, God shall amplify and reward him. Lesson 4. Be merciful to those who offend thee, or who have injured thee. For what must a man's heart be? Who would take heavy vengeance on a slight offense? Thou shalt forgive thy brother until 70 times 7. Lesson 5. Be not hasty to condemn the actions of others. Let thou shouldest the next hour fall into the very same error. Despise scandal and tattling. Let thy words be few. Lesson 6. Study day and night, and supplicate thy Creator, that he would be pleased to grant thee knowledge and understanding, and that by pure spirits may have communication with and influence in thee. Be not overcome. Oh, geez, here we go again. Be not overcome with drunkenness. For be assured that half the evils that befall mankind originate in drunkenness. I don't like this lesson. For too great quality of strong liquors deprive men of their reason, then having lost the use of their faculty of their judgment, they immediately become the recipient of all evil influences, and are justly compared to weathercocks. I'm gonna get that a shirt. I'm justly compared to a weathercock that are driven hither and thither by every gust of wind. So those who drown in reasonable power are easily persuaded to the lightest and most frivolous of pursuits, and from these to vices more gross and reprobate. For the ministers of darkness have never so favorable an opportunity of insulating themselves into the minds and hearts of men as when they are lost in intoxication. I pray you avoid this dreadful vice. Lesson 8. Avoid gluttony and all excess. It is very pernicious, and from the devil. These are the things that constantly tempt man, and by which he falls a prey to his spiritual adversary. For he is rendered incapable of receiving any good and divine gift, besides the divine and angelic power or essence delight, not to be conversant about a man who is defiled and stinking with debauchery and excess. So this list is going downhill for me. I mean, what's next? Thou shalt not receive any blowjobs. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Lesson 9. Covet not much gold. This whole fucking chapter is about making gold. Cover not much gold, but learn to be satisfied with just enough, for to desire more than enough is to offend the deity. To me, it seems like enough would be, whatever you can afford, without all this chicanery. Lesson 10, or as I like to say, Lesson X. Read often these 10 preparatory lessons to fit thee for the great work and for the receiving of higher things, for more pure thou art in heart and mind. By so much quicker shall you perceive those higher secrets we teach, which are entirely hid from the discernment of the vicious and the depraved, because it never can happen that such a source of treasure can be attained merely to satisfy our more gross, earthly and vain desires and inclinations, because here nothing must be thought to be grasped or wrested out of this book, but to the fulfilling of a good end and purpose. When thou shalt have so far purified thy heart, as we have spoken, in the indispensably necessary for receiving of every good thing, thou shalt then see with the other eyes that thou dost not, or thou dost at present. Thy spiritual eye will be open, and thou shalt read man as plain as thou wilt our books. But for all this, depending not on the strength of thine own wisdom, or even then when we think of our hearts secure, if we do not watch them, that they sleep not, the devil or his ministers immediately take us at this unguarded moment and tempts us into the actual commission of some sin or the other. Either he excites our appetite for lust, concupiscence, or any other deadly sin, therefore using our blessed Redeemer's words, what I say unto you, I say unto you all, watch. Perhaps I do not doubt, but there are some that will say when they look at our works, this fellow is all rant, all preaching, and he tells us what we knew before as well as himself. To such I say, let them read our book but twice. They do not gather something that they will acknowledge precious. Nay, be convinced that it is precious to their own satisfaction. I will burn these fucking writings, and they shall be no more remembered by me. To conclude this part, we say that the first matter, prima materia, Adam brought with him out of paradise and left it as our inheritance to us, his successors. And he remained in his original purity. He would have been permitted to have used it himself, but the eternal fiat was passed, that he was to earn his bread by the sweat of his brow. Therefore he could not effect what was afterwards performed by some of his offspring. Hermes Trismegistus, the ancient philosopher, wrote touching the attainments of the stone, which he pronounced to be all the benefit of man and one of the greatest blessings he could possess. And although his writings contain much of the excellence of truth, being wrapped up in such symbolical figures, it renders them exceedingly difficult to be understood, and yet, if comprehended, they no doubt contain some very great secrets by which mortal man may profit. All right, well, I'm gonna take a left turn here. I don't take left turns. I'm gonna take a fucking right turn. So, I mentioned earlier in the show about the feature topic link about the angels of Genesis or whatever. Anyhow, I have a whole series on Genesis. And one of the things that I have on Genesis is the It's called World War Zero and Adam's Magic Wonder Pants. Or is it Underpants? World War Zero and Adam's Magic Underpants, maybe. But so the idea is that God made Adam this set of wonder pants or underpants, whatever. It's basically like a the way I think of it is like a set of long johns. But when he wears these long johns, he has like superpowers, right? So I incorporated this idea into my book, The Ages, this graphic novel. It's pretty awesome. Anyhow, where just like the blessings that are traced through Genesis, and they're often the wrong offspring are blessed. Also, that's an idea we've been tracing down for a long time, and I have great news. I think that I have had help figuring it out, and that's going to be a whole other thing. But just like the blessings that trace down through the stories in Genesis, the Ginsberg's Legend of the Jews tracks this. I mean, they track the blessings too, but they also track this passage of these magic underpants that God made Adam. And they wind up going to different family members through this time. And that makes me think that maybe this has something to do with that, because they're talking about this prima materia that Adam passed on. So it would have went to Seth, or on and on and on and on and on to Abraham, on and on and on and on. So that's interesting. I needed to bring it up because I needed to make a little asterisk here and say on my notes, prima materia equals magic underpants? ? Now it belongs to our purpose to know what it is. Back to the book, which we must extract the first matter of this stone to go on for our purposes, because we must have materials to work upon. For all philosophers agree that the first matter being found, we may proceed without much difficulty for the first matter. First, the grand question in debate is, where is it to be found? I say it is to be found in ourselves. We will possess this first matter. From the beggar to the king, every mother's son carries it about him, and could, in our ingenious chemists, but find a process for extracting, how well would all their labors be repaid? The next question naturally comes up. How are we to draw or attract the secret matter of the stone out of ourselves? Not by any common means. What if it's a fucking kidney stone? What if we have to piss these fucking stones out? Oh, Jesus. I lost my place. Not by common means, and yet it is to be drawn into every action, and that by the most simple means, and in a manner that the attaining of the Philosopher's Stone would very soon follow it. I pray you, my friend, to look into thyself and endeavor to find out in what part of the composition of the prima materia, of the lapis philosophorium, or out of what part of thy substance can the first matter of stone be drawn out. Thou sayest it must be either in the hair, the sweat, the excrement, and I say none of these shall ever be able to find it, and yet thou shalt find it in thyself. Many great philosophers and chemists whom I've had the pleasure to know affirm that admitting to the possibility of transmutation must be taken from the purest gold. To this I say it must not. Either has it anything at all to do with intrinsical gold. They will say that the pure ends of gold must be drawn out from the gold itself. True. It may so be. Then I would ask if they could ever produce more gold than out of which the soul or the essence was extracted. If they have, then they indeed found the secret beyond the powers of our comprehension. Because it is against reason to suppose that if a pound of gold yields a drachm of the soul or the essence, and that only will tinge any more than a profound or purified lead or mercury, because we have tried these various experiments. I have found in some of my first essays turned both lead and mercury into good gold, but no more than that of which the soul was extracted. But, however, do not lose our time in vain and ridiculous disputations. Know that whatever prodigious things or experiments have been tried with respect to the first matter by external subjects, either in the mineral, animal, or vegetable kingdoms, as they are called, I say in us the power of all wonderful things which the Supreme Creator has in His infinite mercy implanted in our souls. Out of her is to be extracted the first matter, the true argent of vive, the mercury of the Philosopher's Stone, and the true ends, the spiritual living gold or waterish mercury of first matter, which being matured is capable of transmuting 1,000 pints of impure metal into good and perfect gold. Endure fire, test, or couple. So in my mind, alchemy, if you've listened to the show for any amount of time, I've probably let it slip here and there. The way that I look at these occult things, these magic things, is that it's magic as psychology. And the way that I understand alchemy is that it's actually about, God, I don't know. Should I say this? Should I put a fucking point on it? I don't know. The way that I look at it is that it is about the reunification. Maybe it's like a Gnostic idea. It's the reunification. It's the male and the female becoming one. And that's the way that I understand, alchemy. I literally don't believe it's this old wizard turning lead into gold. I think it's all an allegory for becoming a whole person. So I just wanted to touch on that because I think I really think it's a powerful idea. And whenever I do these alchemy episodes, I think I even started one with reading an old Tool song. The lyrics of an old Tool song that's talking about a man and a woman having, the way that I understand it is they're having sex and they're breathing in union. They're becoming one. They're re-becoming one being. So it's this idea that when God created Adam and Eve, he literally created a creature with 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads, I guess. I don't know. But then he separated them. And when he separated them, he created a problem, or a solution to a problem. And it gives man and woman a quest, right? Like you're searching through your life to find your missing half. This is the thing with marriage. You're sharing your life. You're becoming one person. So I wanted to bring that up because I think it's pretty interesting here. It seems like he's kind of hinting at that. You're turning lead into gold. The first episode I did on this stuff was called The Magnum Opus of Alchemy. And it talks about what the different colors mean in the alchemical plates and the artwork that we look at nowadays. I'm John. This is the Abercast. We're going to wrap it up, but there's still a couple pages of this left that I totally want to get into. So if you hang on until after the end here, I'm going to come back and we're going to do like a third, like Alien. We're going to do the fourth act here after the credit scene. So thank you guys. If you punch out now, that's fine. I understand. I try to keep it to like an hour, so you can figure out when you could fit the shows. That's also why I put a break in the middle. Anyhow, I'm John. This is Abercast. Thank you guys. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. Thanks to my Subscribestar supporters. And if you don't hang on, that's fine. It's cool. Just punch out, and I'll get with you in a few days. Right? Yo.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Part 2 of the manner of extracting the first material of the Philosopher's Stone and the use it is put into purifying the imperfect metals and transmuting them into good gold. Lesson 11. Take the foregoing instructions as thy principal instrument, and know that our soul has the power. And when the body is free, as we said before, of any pollution, the heart void of malice and offense, I say the soul is then a free agent, and the power spiritually and magically to act upon any matter whatsoever. Therefore, I said the first matter is in the soul, and the extracting of it is to bring the dormant power of the pure, living, breathing spirit to the eternal soul and to act. Note well that every agent has the power of acting upon its patient. Every essence that is distilled forth is received into a recipient, and that recipient must first be made clean. Ever so must the soul and the heart of man of vile affections must be thrown away and trampled underfoot. And thou shalt be able to proceed in thy work, which do in the manner following. Lesson 12. What? Huh? No, it has to do with the average American's commute to work is like 25 minutes. So I put the break in the middle in case you need to get out of your goddamn car and go to work. Come on, stop it. All right, lesson 12. The expense thou must be at will, but a trifle. All the instruments necessary are but 3. A crucible, an egg philosophical, and a retort with its receiver, and put your fine gold in weight. File it up, put it in your philosophic egg, pour it upon it twice the weight of the best Hungarian mercury, and close up the egg with a hermetic seal. Put it in there for 3 months in horse dung. Take it out at the time and see what kind of form thy gold and mercury has assumed, and take it out and put it on half its weight of a good spirit. Sal, Aman. Put them in a pot full of sand over the fire in the retort and let them distill into a pure essence. Add the mercury and the water of life, or the prima materia, and put them in the philosophical egg. And lesson 13. Set them in, we're back to the horse shit. Set them into the horse shit for another 3 months, and then take them out. And we see what thou hast, the pure ethereal essence, which is the living gold, and pour this pure spiritual liquor on a drachm of molten fine gold, and you will find that which will satisfy the hunger and the thirsting after this secret. For the increase of thy gold will seem to thee miraculous, as indeed it is. Take it to the jeweler's or the goldsmith, and let him try it in thy presence, and thou wilt have reason to bless God for his mercy to thee. Do thy duty as he commanded thee, and use all the benefit thou shalt receive in actions worthy of thy nature. Lesson 14. This is the final lesson. When thy spiritual eye is there's a typo here. When thy spiritual eye is opened, and thou shalt begin to see to what end thou wert created, thou shalt want no necessary thing either for the comfort or the support. So just pitch your boxer briefs. It's not going to do you any good. Only keep in the rules we have prescribed in the beginning of this little treatise, and fear God, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Be not hasty to reveal any secrets thou mayest learn, for the good spirits both day and night will be thy instructors, and will continually reveal thee many secrets. Think not that thou canst either profit or benefit so much by the instruction of those who profess great advantages in classical education and high schooling, and be assured they are in spiritual knowledge much in the dark. For he who desires not spiritual knowledge cannot attain it by any means, but by first coming to God. Secondly, by purifying his own heart. And thirdly, by submitting himself to the will of the Holy Spirit. To guide and direct him in all truths, and to the attaining of all knowledge, both human and divine, and by aggregating nothing to our own power or strength, but by referring all to the mercy of the goodness of God. Amen.